everybody. We're back with, of course, we have the name now, the MMA Waffle.
The MMA Waffle.
Yeah, so if anyone don't understand that kind of saying, in England, if someone like waffles on, it just means that they talk a lot. So I figured like it will be fitting, the MMA Waffle, we're talking about MMA and it's two guys that can definitely talk a lot about it. Me, Reza from Freja MMA, and Davey Dave from the 4 Ounce Gloves podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You're saying you're good now. The last time we spoke, you were supposed to come to Fight Club Rush. What happened, man?
Yeah, I was rare and ready to go. Me, your one, we were, car was nearly packed,
Hmm.
So we were supposed to head out to Fight Club Rush. Really looking forward to it. Um, Looks like we missed a party as well, but I got a positive corona test like the day before, or like 2 days before we were supposed to go down. So it's like it, it's weird, the fact that I haven't had like anything through the whole pandemic, and
Hmm.
then the one time, things are finally opening up, finally gonna, plan something fun in, and the same weekend.
Yeah, you gotta
Unbelievable.
you gotta get that vaccine, man.
Yeah, we'll see.
No, like straight after Fight Club Rush as well. A lot of people probably know or don't know. I work away a lot, and then straight the Monday after Fight Club Rush, driving like around 9-10 hours to up in the north of Sweden. And then like the second day when I'm here, I get fever, I get a runny nose, I get a cough. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. But everything come back negative. It was a bit strange. I think it was just from the vaccine, probably.
Yeah,
But you watched the event at least, right? Fight Club Rush.
yeah, I did.
So what was your thoughts on it?
I thought it was a really good event. I thought it was good. It was definitely good to have the undercard
Hmm.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
That I think that was a really smart decision because especially with like in Sweden, everybody knows about Fight Club Rush. But if you've heard about it from like and you live in a different country, then maybe if you don't have UFC Fight Pass, then maybe you're not going to get UFC Fight Pass just to watch Fight Club Rush.
Hmm.
But if you've seen that it's on YouTube and then you go on YouTube and you get a little taster of it, and then they go, oh, well, at this time we're going to be on Fight Pass and we've got all these fights, and they give you like a little taste of the fighters that are up and coming. Then maybe you'll go on Fight Pass, or if you don't have it, you'll get Fight Pass,
Hmm.
and then you'll go and watch it on Fight Pass.
Yeah.
And if you didn't watch it on Fight Pass, then you missed a lot of really good fights.
Therefore, I mean, yeah. Just checking what fights were on the Fight Pass. It was Alexander Lindgren versus Rick Gangia Mikkelsen. That was a great finish. That was a DOS choke. Uh, then it was Basir Safdari and Ilaz Zabalai. That fight was just crazy from the get go.
Yeah. Like
Uh,
the standard of fights, though, like honestly, the standard of fights on Fight Club Rush was incredible.
yeah, I would say so too. And then the two big guys, Naiman and Fatih Aktas. Most
Yeah,
of the action, well, there was a lot of action during the fight, and for heavyweights to go all 3 rounds was kind of crazy. But
yeah,
the biggest action was after the fight when
yeah. I saw
Ilmaz Faji
that.
came in.
Yeah, it was like kind of like nearly a taste of the WWE.
Hmm. But I thought that was really nice. I mean, it's definitely setting up for people to watch the next event as well, especially
Yeah,
if that fight is
definitely.
going to happen. Um, who was the highlights for the event for you?
Um, my highlight was Alexander Love.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's really cool when you have a guy that you have a lot of hype around, and has done a really good job in their amateur career, and then when they make the step up to professional, and they like cement that the hype is real. It's not
Mm.
just like, oh well, people like this guy or they like his personality or whatever, and they've hyped him up. But you can actually back it up, and you can back it up at a professional level, not just at a professional level, but like fighting a quality opponent. Because I mean, not anybody could be a professional, but kind of anybody could be a professional. You know, if you've been in a few fight promotions and you can find your way to be a professional fighter without being a good fighter. But the fact that it was a fight club rush and he had a proper quality opponent, it wasn't just some 50-50 record
Mhm.
fighter that he was fighting against. He was fighting someone that was a proper quality opponent,
The gold
and
standard.
he still still delivers.
Hmm.
That was impressive and fun to see.
Yeah, that fight from the get go gave me goosebumps. And I mean, me that watches a lot of fights, both European and like international UFC levels, also been to UFC events, fights that give you goosebumps from the get go and then also delivers, like you said, those are very,
Yeah.
very special. And I understand why it's getting a lot of international like attention as well from loads of different media sources. I mean, even from the walkouts, Alexander Love coming out with so much energy, Amir
Mm.
Malikpour like not wanting to take the door and climbing over the cage. Like I love that. I don't know where it came from or the reasons behind it, but I loved it. And then in the build up to the fight, a lot of people was saying about Alexander Love being, if he doesn't knock you out in the first round, he's then in trouble. So
Yeah.
then for him to get a knockout very late in the third round, I feel
Yeah.
like really boosted his confidence, and that's exactly what he needed to like go on that next step. It was just his confidence that was needed to push him forward.
Yeah, no, that's definitely one of the things as well. Because a lot of knockout artists don't really get credit because people, yeah, a bit like like Connor. A lot of people say, well, if he doesn't get you out in the first or the second, then it's kind of then things start to look good for you. And kind of, I think for a lot of people to be valid, like to like the mainstream, and still being a knockout artist and being like valid that you're like a proper all-round fighter, that it's not just lucky punches. Um, if you can do it in the later rounds, that I think that proves a lot.
Yeah, and it was the latest of the round as it could be. A lot of
Yeah,
people are saying about Amir Malikpour's choices to like start throwing down at that point was kind of not the smartest decision, but I understand why he was doing it. Like
yeah,
he was in war mode.
definitely. And I mean, the thing is, especially like when you're coming up, I think it's really important as well that I mean, of course, the main focus is to win the fight, but especially coming up, putting on exciting fights, making people talk about your fights, being someone that people actually really, really want to watch.
Hmm.
I think it's huge. Like, of course, you want to win the fight, but if you're having a fight that is a lot of clinching, there's not much action, and maybe you steal a couple of takedowns each round, and then you win on the scorecards, but it wasn't really an eventful fight.
Hmm.
Eventually, you will get to the highest level if you keep on winning, but it will take you a lot longer than somebody that goes and starches every single opponent.
Definitely. I mean, it's like that first impression kind of thing. For a lot of people, this is Alexander Löw's first impression. We know him that's been like following the Swedish scene and the amateurs and things like that. But to put a performance like that on Fight Pass,
Yeah,
quite crazy.
yeah,
Another highlight for me though was the Fight Club Rush highlight reel guy, and that's Raman Srmanits. I mean, in his first professional Fight Club Rush fight, he like starched the gay quarter, and then in this one with a Superman punch knockout, like he's just a guy that keeps on delivering for that promotion.
yeah. And the thing about him is he looks proper dangerous.
Hmm.
Like he's one of those guys that when he walks in a room, you're like, he's not the kind of person you'd fuck with in like if you saw him in a bar or if you saw him in a dark alley. He has the proper look for it as well, and then
Yeah,
he probably backs up with his skills.
and I mean, speaking to him, he's like the most soft-spoken and kind person you'll ever speak to. And it's always
Yeah,
those kind of people that you're a bit afraid of. It's always the quiet ones that will
yeah,
fuck you up for sure.
yeah. No, and I
Um,
liked because you had the interview with him where he was talking about his previous opponent, the one that broke the neck.
yep, yep.
Yeah, like I think it's really nice to see that, not only that he wishes well, but the fact that he still, like follows his old opponents, and I think you gain a lot of respect for fighters that, um, they kind of keep those relationships.
Hmm.
Because if you and another man have stood in the cage together and you fought your hearts out, then I think you get like a different connection, and a connection that you can't really understand until you've done it.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see them still have those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I guess people have to see the difference between the sport and, you know, life. And
Mm,
he's the kind of guy that will definitely show you his personal life side and also his fighting side.
yeah,
And both of them, I think, would be pretty interesting. Hopefully, I can get him on a podcast or maybe this show to we can dissect his brain a little bit,
yeah, that would be cool.
see how he works. Um, there was also Josephine Knutsson, another flawless performance. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, she's doing bits. I mean, she keeps on like this, she's going to be getting to a high level very, very, very quickly.
Hmm.
Um, no, she's really good. Um, and she's really, really starting to make a name for herself, honestly. Like, and I think a lot of people are starting to stay nervous as well.
Yeah, she definitely surprised me with her grappling skills. It's probably a thing of being in the same training sessions as people like Hamzat and these great grapplers that they have over there.
Yeah,
But because her opponent definitely did look stronger going in there in muscle mass and in body type kind
yeah,
of thing. But yeah, she surprised me and she really pushed her will onto Elizabeth Rodriguez, and I didn't expect that at all. I thought it would be
no,
a normal kind of striker versus grappler kind of fight.
yeah, no, definitely. Skills pay the bills.
Yeah, and for any kind of MMA casuals that think, they look at a results card and they see a decision and they think, okay, I'm not going to check that fight out. You should definitely check out Zoran Milic versus Johnny Tuma because that was a war where both guys definitely put out all of their heart into a fight.
Mm, definitely.
I mean,
Um,
and their flyweights. Well,
yeah,
it was a catchweight, but they are kind of flyweights.
yeah. No, it was good that they ended up getting matched up though.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, the fights would have been good anyway. But the fact that they got paired up, and we got to see the fight that we saw was it's pretty cool.
So going on to the next one, Fight Club Rush 10, their big 10th event, and there was rumblings of a title belt or a championship that they might be bringing into it. Out of the big winners from the night, shall I say, who do you think should be the man or woman or division kind of thing that fight for this belt?
Oof, that's a hard one. I mean, the thing is, if you look at the card and the people that fought and the people that won, um, there's a lot of people that deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to pick somebody out and say this person um, deserves to have a title fight. Um, personally, I could definitely get on board with having like two title fights, having a main and a co-main event that both the title fights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then hard to say division, but I would like to see I'd like to see a men's and a women's title fight. I think that'd be cool. Um, yeah, that's what I'd say. But hard to pick a fighter and hard to pick an opponent as well.
Well, I guess you
And
saying a woman's title fight, there will have to Josephine will have to be in that title picture here.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So if we get a bit maybe controversial here and have to pick fights, then of course I'm gonna have to put Josephine in there. Let's say that you gave that example of having two title fights,
Mm,
then I'll have to put Josephine in there, and I'd love to see her against Elin Öberg.
mm.
That for the
That would be a good
championship
fight.
would be amazing. I'm not really sure about Elin's contracts and things with other promotions,
Mm,
but that's definitely the fight to make if we're gonna have a women's title.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be cool, and I think, especially because both of them really have a name around here,
Hmm.
I think that would gather a lot of hype, both for the promotion and for the fighters, and I think it would be a really good fight as well.
Yeah, and another one that was kind of, put into the minds on the event, and that would be Alexander Love versus Johnny Tuma.
Yeah.
Definitely two young guys. Okay, Alexander Love has only had one pro fight, but he's calling out the big guys already. He's calling out people that are more
Mhm.
experienced than him. I would have probably said it would be cool to see Zoran fight for the title of Factor Rush because he definitely had one of the biggest pops of the night. The crowd are just so
Yeah.
behind him. Um, but he has a great record, but coming off of a loss, it's just the right way kind of thing I would think to go.
Yeah.
Uh,
But when is the do we have dates yet for Fight Club Rush 10?
let's see, I do have it. Uh, if you can just waffle while I kind of find it, that would be great. I think it's in November at some point. Uh,
Yeah. That's the thing. If there was, I would say, like, if it had been 6 months from now, I can see Alexander Love being pretty active, and then maybe he could get like a couple of fights in, like 1, 2 fights maybe.
mhm,
And if he won those, I could definitely see you throwing him in a title shot.
yeah.
At the same time, I don't think people would have an issue with him, getting a title shot,
Mhm.
um, especially being from Westeros training there. Um, but I get that you probably want someone with a bit longer of a record.
Mhm. But
But if you perform well and you sell fights, then
yeah, definitely. I mean, Fight Club Rush is gonna be November 20th.
mm,
Um, also live on Fight Pass, which is great. I know that both Zoran and Alexander Love has signed to fight on the event.
yeah,
So I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see. We'll see. We'll see
yeah,
if Zlatko is watching and takes. If they take our fights, then we want 10%, right?
100%,
100%.
100% will take
Okay,
10%.
okay, okay. I thought he was getting greedy there.
No, not that greedy.
So yeah, as you said, it was a great event and definitely a showcase of these young talents. This is the year that we have a lot of Swedish events, so I guess we should probably come up with some sort of rating system about which Swedish events is really hitting the hardest right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this one's gonna be hard to beat.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Fight Club Rush, they do it so well. Fight Club Rush is so, you can really feel that they've taken care with every single detail.
Hmm.
Like, even the emails we got for the media days and the information that goes out to the fighters and everything. It literally feels like a high quality product. It feels like any other professional sports league.
Hmm.
It could be. It's definitely on like the marketing side of things and the design side of things and the things that the public get to see. Um, the way the fight cards are drawn up, the quality of the fighters, um, the quality of the promotional material, and all that kind of things. It really does feel like it's an established professional um, event.
Hmm.
Um, so I'd probably say, like, if you look across all the events in Sweden, that is definitely it's at the top with just the professional outlook that you get and the detail, the attention to detail in it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you're saying, the production team that work on this is so top notch, is so elite that I'm hoping with this it kind of steps up the game to the other promotions. Like, okay, now it's time for us to show what we really have, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, like, if you compare that to like big boxing fights,
Mm.
it is 100% on par, if not better. Like, I remember me and my mates, we were watching um, AJ versus Andy Ruiz
Hmm.
on the zone, and um, the quality of the production was so below the actual level of the fight. It's unbelievable. And when you have like if you look in like an international basis, Flight Club Rush is still pretty small, but what they've done with what they have and made it so professional, it was like miles beyond that AJ Ruiz fight.
Hmm.
And that is a fight that was, pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars, and they could spend so much on production.
Hmm.
And then you have a smaller promotion, a smaller MMA promotion as well, that can put on the kind of event and the kind of production value that they have, where you're starting to get close to like Bellator one UFC levels with Fight Club Rush,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's like it's insane. And I think that makes a really big difference, especially when you're attracting new fans and you're getting people that have stumbled across it. If you scrolling through Fight Pass and you're looking for something to watch, and then you're a lot of the promotions you probably don't know of because nobody knows all the promotions. So you go through the promotions, click on something, and then you get something like Fight Club Rush that looks so professional
Hmm.
that you can't you can't really tell it apart from like a UFC or a Bellator.
Yeah.
Just when when you're watching a fight, that's the kind of thing that's going to keep someone watching. Whereas if you click on a stream of a promotion where the audio's dodgy, or the lighting is weird,
Hmm.
and the camera's not that good and the camera angles are weird, um, the production value. If you have a low production value, you're not going to keep eyes on it.
Yeah.
People will just switch to the next thing, because I think what a lot of people want is they want this, like professional sports league look when they watch something, to see that it's serious. Because you could have a fight promotion with really, really good fighters. You could have people that are on the brink of the UFC, but if the production value is not there, unless you know those fighters, you're not going to stick around to watch it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, I guess the closest thing we can probably kind of see the similarities to would be like Russian Cage Warriors. I mean,
Yeah.
Cage Warriors, people are saying is the stepping stone to European fighters. Fight Club Rush wants to be the stepping stone for Scandinavian fighters going into the UFC. And, in some ways, you can say that the production of Fight Club Rush was just that little bit better compared
Yeah.
to a company that's been doing it for however long, many years that Cage Warriors has been going, and how many eyes is
Mm.
on it. Kind of crazy to think like that. And I was speaking with Slacko on the night, as stressful as he was, and I was saying, like, just look at the difference between Fight Club Rush 9 and Fight Club Rush 1, and how much
Mm.
you've grown, and how much the team has grown, and how much the fighters have grown, and everything like that. It's extraordinary to see that in such a small amount of time that it's been.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, the fact that they've come so far in such a short amount of time makes you think that, like, what are they going to be able to do in 10 years' time with Fight Club Rush
Mhm.
if they've already got this far in such a short amount of time? Like how far is the rocket ship going to go?
Yeah, everyone's talking about Dana White looking for a fight Westeros edition, so
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that one for sure. So the next events that will be coming up is Superior Challenge, which will be um, next week, I think, if I'm mistaken, 25th of September. Then Wolf
Yeah.
Fight Promotion,
Yeah, I'll be going to that.
and then Zone Pro MMA and Muay Thai League.
Yeah.
Kind of a strange one. I always feel like it's a strange one when they mix the MMA and another combat sport, but I feel like it's going to be interesting
Yeah.
anyway.
No, definitely. I mean, the thing is, I think it's cool to be able to watch, because otherwise you don't really get much Thai boxing at that kind of level.
Hmm.
Um, but it kind of depends who's watching it. For people that are really, down with Thai boxing, then 100% that's going to be something that you're really going to want to go to. You're really going to want to see. But people that are just like that, I think the thing with Thai boxing, especially, Thai boxing versus kickboxing as well. Thai boxing is so traditional
Yeah.
that it does make it, if you're a casual fan and you just want to see some MMA, and then you've got a couple of Thai boxing fights, maybe that's not your thing.
Mm.
Um, but like definitely good fighters, good promotion. So I think it'll be good.
I feel like it's interesting because it does bring in fans from both sides, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So people that have not really entered the MMA world, but like Muay Thai, and then people that have not really joined the Muay Thai world, but like MMA, could kind of
Mm.
cross over. So it's a great idea anyway. And sorry I didn't say it, but the dates for Wolf promotion, did they change the dates, by the way? Wolf promotion?
I don't remember. I remember them posting something um, about the restrictions changing, and I don't remember where they changed the dates because of that. But at the beginning of October though, isn't
I
it?
can find out quick. Let's see. Yeah, October 2nd. So the
Yeah.
date was right. So Wolf Fight promotion will be October 2nd, and Zone, which will be, I think, 23rd of October, if I'm not mistaken. Just check that one for you as well. Let's see. 23rd of October, that's correct. Yep. So in those kind of upcoming events, what is exciting you from those? Do you have any big fights?
Wolf fight promotion is definitely exciting, especially because we know a couple of the guys on the card.
Mhm.
Um, I think Kevin Munier's fight. He's fighting. What's his name? Ola Nilsson.
Mhm.
I think that's going to be a really good fight. I mean, the thing about Kevin is huge, and the guy he's meeting is huge as well.
Future, if
Um,
you can get to that
yeah,
much.
exactly. But Kevin can bang, and Kevin. It's not just that Kevin can bang, but Kevin can grapple. I don't think there's a lot of people at his or in his weight class in Sweden. I think that a lot of the guys they rely on power. They rely on being able to knock your lights out.
Mm-hmm.
But Kevin, he can do both,
Yep.
and that's what makes him exciting. Because if you need stand up, you can stand up. But if you want to grapple, you can grapple with him as well. And I would probably say that he's a lot stronger than he looks. Not that he looks weak. I mean, he looks like a big, strong dude. But
He's even stronger.
I think he's stronger.
Jesus.
Honestly.
He's definitely
Yeah.
be able to open jaws that we won't be able to.
100%. I think if I took all the Mexican supplements in the world, I don't think I could ever compete with Kevin.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But he just a like little kind of warning thing here. He's not been taking any Mexican supplements.
No.
Okay. We're not saying anything like that. And yeah, Superior Challenge is also looking like a great. It's going to be a great night of fights. All the Swedish hype is there. We have the return of Andreas Ståhl to Swedish MMA. We have Morad Moreno. We have Stegenberg. We have Adam Westland, which is just, I don't know why, but he's just like a weird phenomenon when you watch him fight. It's like he's just something special that you always kind of want to watch. We have Bartosz Wojciechowicz that will be fighting on Superior Challenge again. Fernando Flores, and the main event is two big guys in Kenneth Barry taking on his old rival Edison Macedo. So that's gonna be a good night of fights, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be.
And there is the rivalry between Fight Club Rush and Superior Challenge. No one's allowed to talk about it, but everyone knows it, kind of thing. But we could talk about it here. There is a bit of a rivalry there, a bit of competition there. So
yeah, no, definitely.
So this just means it's Superior Challenge's time to kind of step up their game as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Superior Challenge have been like the kind of like the reigning top.
Mm-hmm.
promotion in Scandinavia, and I think that Fight Club Rush are doing a very good job of, you know, kind of creeping into that space and taking that title.
Just imagine like this. This is a time right now where we are in a pandemic and we're having so many
Yeah.
events. Could you imagine the day when like all this pandemic crap is over and
Mm.
the other events are starting to begin? The Swedish MMA League is now starting to begin for the amateurs as well.
Yeah.
That's great news. But then we have things like um, uh, what is their promotion called? The one in Gävle, uh, Glock. That
Oh,
was it. Glock, Lord of the Cage, right?
I can't remember what the name was.
Yeah, those are gonna be putting on great fights again. And then we know that there's gonna be other promotions that are gonna bounce back.
I'm guessing Fighting Championship. It was called
AK,
AK Fighting Championship.
maybe
Yeah, that'll be
Excellence and things like that.
yeah.
So exciting times for
Honestly, like
Scandinavians.
Sweden like considering the population of Sweden, the amount of fight promotions we have that are still quality
Hmm.
is actually pretty incredible. But I think a lot of that is down to the quality of the athletes we have. I mean, like if you just look at the international amateur competition we just had, and Sweden did the best of all the countries in medals.
Yeah,
It's like, and I think it says a lot about Sweden in general, just like the outlook that we have on sports and the way we like make our sports federations and that kind of thing,
hmm,
and the fact that people like take it really seriously, and that they have a really good structure and they give opportunities to athletes no matter what sport you're playing. And I think you see that in MMA because MMA is a new sport for the world. Like it's a young sport, and if you, especially like Sweden um, is definitely not been around here as long as it's been in Japan and the US.
hmm,
You know, and the fact that Sweden's doing so well and just like pumping out athletes that are going to be so good. Like we do have some legends. You know, you've got Gustafsson, you've got Latifi. Um, and a lot of high level fighters that are either in the UFC or getting to the UFC or close levels. But it feels like in the next 10 years, Sweden is going to have such a high quality of MMA fighter
definitely.
that I think people are going to be really impressed.
Yeah, definitely. So just to kind of go back for the people that don't know what you were talking about, there is the International MMA Federation's world competition, so the world championships, where Sweden ranked the highest in medals with 9.
Yeah,
So
it's incredible.
congratulations to all the guys and girls that went out there and competed.
And that's the thing as well. You see when they take the step to go pro,
Hmm.
because a lot of them they've had good amateur careers. They get into the national team, they perform well at the international championships, and then maybe they have one or two fights, and then they go pro. And then when they go pro, they like, you know, it's not like they go pro and then they just like kind of fall off because it wasn't what they imagined or they weren't prepared, but they're really prepared
Yeah.
when they go pro, and they do really well when they go pro as well.
Yeah, but this is the kind of argument that there has been because a lot of people say that you can have 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds going into the UFC, but in
Mm.
Sweden they will be spending that time developing themselves in these amateur competitions and developing
Mm.
themselves in this national team, like you're saying. So the age when they can, I would say that Love is probably one of the youngest MMA fighters that have turned pro. I mean, he's maybe like
Mm.
21, 22. I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
Um, but he seems very young.
yeah,
So it's the kind of thing of like, is because as well in Sweden, you can't just be a pro MMA fighter.
no.
So it's the kind of thing of, is it wasting good years doing this? Or is it, like you're saying, developing themselves, sharpening their tools so that when they do become pros, they are that elite standard?
Yeah, no. In my opinion, I think it's good. You look at boxing, for example. People have proper long amateur careers. Maybe they even go to the Olympics before
Hmm.
they go pro. If you're looking at like the really high level boxers, and I mean, of course, you can go pro early, but the thing that you do have to remember, especially with fighting in general, and especially MMA, the ceiling is so high and there's so much that you need to learn. And the fact that the starting age of it tends to be, now it's getting lower because jiu-jitsu and that kind of thing is starting to get more accessible,
Hmm.
and there's more clubs and everything, so younger kids start doing it. But if you compare it to like football, or you compare it to hockey, for example, kids that are 3 years old are standing on skates,
Yeah,
and learning how to handle the puck, or kicking a ball around. But the age, not many people are going to be taking their 4-year-old, to the martial arts gym,
hmm,
and thinking that this is going to be a career. Whereas I know most kids do it for fun, but there are definitely parents that will be, taking their kids down to the local football club and thinking, well, my kid has good hand-eye coordination, and if I keep on doing this, then in 18 years, then they'll go pro. I'll get a bag,
they're definitely doing that in Ireland now, I think.
Yeah. No, so in my opinion, I think it's probably a good route because, like you say, you could join the UFC when you're 20, 21, but then you get a guy like Chase Hooper, all the talent in the world.
Hmm.
But in my opinion, it's a little too early. Like, he can win some fights, but from what I've seen, he's not going to be winning a championship at the moment because you need that experience and you don't have that, especially because the age of being able to compete at a high level in MMA is, you're 18 before you can have proper
Mm,
fights.
that's true.
Um, and and the fact that it is at first 18 when you can, compared to, like, if you're an elite talented youth, you could be playing um, in a professional club in football, for example, when you're 15, 16 at a really high level.
Yeah.
But you literally can't do that until you're 18, no matter how good you are.
Hmm.
So I think, like, the fact that we have this system where you have a really good amateur league, um, and you have the time, and then there's also a blueprint. What do I need to do? Okay, I'll start training, then I'll go to the amateurs, then once I compete in the amateurs, once I get some wins under my belt, then I'll go to the next level of amateurs before I'm thrown in the deep end of, like, professional straight
Yeah.
away. um, and then if I'm good enough, then I'll get into the national team, and then from the national team I'll go pro. So it's easy to know what you need to do to get where you want to go. Whereas I think in a lot of other countries, it's like, well, if you do a couple of fights, see if it goes well, and it goes well, but it's really hard to gauge the level of opponents you've been fighting against. And then they throw you in the deep end, and suddenly you go pro, and then you have a 50-50 record, and it's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
And suddenly you start, because you go pro so quick, suddenly you start fighting for money so early that it's like, okay, well, I need to fight to pay my bills.
Yeah, true. Or they don't take it serious enough and have side jobs or a main job and don't take it like as a career. And it's also the kind
Yeah.
of thing of the promotion that is held at such a high standard, the UFC, like
Mm.
the ones that everyone's dreaming to go to. One, they're not going to take on someone that's 6-6 kind of thing, with like loads
No.
of losses. And two, if you are kind of getting quite a good win streak in your kind of early professional career, really you only have like 3 losses and you're out in the UFC. So
Yeah.
don't chase the dream too quick, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's really dangerous because there are a few people that can be thrown in the deep end.
Hmm.
Max Holloway, for example, really young dude. Charles Oliveira, really young dude when he gets thrown in the UFC, and kind of grew up in the UFC, both of them. Um, but how many others are there that aren't a Holloway, that aren't a Charles Oliveira, that have been super talented? Maybe they've won a lot of jiu-jitsu, they've been great at kickboxing or something. They make it to the UFC, think that they've, properly made it, and then they get into the UFC, maybe 50-50 in the UFC, like you say, rack up 3 losses, and then the UFC cuts them.
Hmm.
And I think it, honestly, like, I don't know, but in my opinion, it feels like if you've been in the UFC and you get cut, it's a lot harder to get back than it is to, have bided your time outside of the UFC,
Yeah.
and then joined. Like, if you look at a Jack Shaw or a Paddy Pimblett, guys that they've taken their time, I'm sure they could have won fights a couple of years ago, even if they're young. But they took their time. The UFC came, they offered them contracts, and they said, no 2 or 3 times. And then when they now felt like they're ready, they made that decision to go for it, and it seems to be working out for them.
What do you think of Paddy Pimblett's debut in the UFC though?
I like that. I think he's a funny guy. It's weird because he's so entertaining, and like if anybody else was doing the stuff he was doing, you'd be like, "Oh, this guy's fake. He's full of shit." But he can compete. But honestly, I think that his personality 100% through and through, and he's hilarious. And I think that a lot of people are comparing him to Connor, but he's not Connor. He's a completely different kind. I think you need to kind of respect.
Mm.
Don't expect everyone to be a Connor. There's going to be stars, but a lot of people are going to be very different. It was funny that he nearly got clipped. That would have been a brutal ending to a big hype train.
Nearly got clipped. He did get clipped a couple
He
of times.
did get clipped.
It's the kind of thing of like, I guess if it wasn't him, people will call him an idiot for going in like that. Do you know what I mean? But with it being him, they're like, yeah, that's what he's like.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll see him in a boring fight anytime soon.
No. And that's the thing, if you've got a lot of hype behind you and you have a lot of fun fights, then I think that's the other thing, you can get away with a loss here and there. Because if you're a fun fighter, you're a fun fighter. Look at Nate Diaz, he's lost a few, and people will still fork out the money to pay for a pay-per-view to watch him or go to see his fight because he's an entertaining fighter.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you had like, I don't know, this is harsh, but like an Usman, he has been, but his striking has made his better striking has made his fights more entertaining. But just the brutal wrestling, the brutal pressure. If he'd racked up a few losses, people wouldn't, they wouldn't be paying to watch him. Unfortunately, he's an amazing athlete and definitely one of the best in the world. But if you're exciting, you do have more leeway.
Definitely. And speaking of UFC, we had a great event that just happened last night with Anthony Smith versus Span.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts of that event? I feel like it was good that Anthony Smith bounced back like that, really.
Definitely. The thing for me is Anthony Smith, I've got like a hard time like getting my head around him because he has moments of brilliance and then he has other moments where you're like, wow, this guy's literally one loss away from getting cut.
Definitely.
But when he's good, he's really, really good. Last night's fight was really exciting. It was honestly like I think a lot of people when it's a light heavyweight or a heavyweight fight, people are like, oh, this is going to be madness. It's going to be stand and bang. It's going to be crazy. And I think a lot of people can overhype the fights just because of the weight division. And sometimes you just get two guys that are really, really, or not badly conditioned, but they're not in the best shape they could be. Well, they're carrying a lot of extra weight and they gas out pretty quickly. And the fight's not that exciting. It's a lot of hanging on each other. And maybe someone gets like a late KO. Yeah. But that fight yesterday was madness. From start to finish, it was absolute madness. And there were like 5 times in that fight where I was like, Span is going to finish him. And 5 times I was like, Anthony's going to finish Span. So
in such a short time as well.
Proper exciting fight. I know, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's mad. I really do think the times when we saw Smith versus Jones and, his losses, I really do feel like that was maybe something mental that was kind of blocking him from pushing forward. But Jones seems to have that with a lot of fighters that he faces anyway. The kind of thing of you are facing the great John Jones. Kind of thing. It could be something like that. We also saw Pani Kianzad in the prelims. Fight didn't go her way, but damn, she didn't give up for a second, did she?
Like, to be honest, like I'm not a judge, and of course I'm biased, but I thought she definitely did a good enough job to get the win.
Was it a split decision or was it?
I can't remember.
I can probably pick it up. Well,
but honestly, like Pani, she 100% had the first round. The second round I would give to Raquel Pennington, but the third round was absolute chaos. And I would say that the most damaging shots, even if it looked like Pani had taken more damage at the end of the fight, in total, I would say that the actual shots that you're like, ooh, and you're really thinking, oh, this was, that was a hard shot. That, maybe she's gonna get knocked out soon. It was Pani that was doing all of
Mm.
that. Even if she didn't maybe have the accumulation of shots, maybe she didn't have she might not have been winning like the strike
Mm-hmm.
numbers, but definitely like the significant strikes and the strikes that were actually doing damage, in my opinion, they were all her, and I would say that was definitely enough to win that fight. But I guess when it's a close fight, kind of anything can happen.
Yeah, it was a 29-28 all to Raquel. Um, Looking at the fight stats, it says that Raquel did have the majority of total strikes, but Pani did have more significant strikes. So I can see why it is a close fight, and yeah, it was an exciting one as well. A
Mm.
lot of clinch work in there.
Yeah, and that was the thing. That was one of those. Personally, I'm not like the kind of person that tends to want to see like a lot of clinch fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are definitely different ways of doing clinch fighting. Some people they clinch and it's really boring. They don't throw much. They'll throw a couple of rabbit punches and some toe stomps and that. But you could really see both of them being super technical. Um, just the technicality and the when you saw them, change of position, setting up things, proper dirty boxing, throwing elbows, making space, throwing other elbows, other strikes, uppercuts,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was honestly that was a really entertaining fight. Even if I'm not a huge fan of fights that end up being the clinch, but that was definitely a lot of fun to see. Very entertaining,
I guess a big
and I think that Pani really showed that she deserves to be up there in the top of the division as
mhm.
well. Definitely.
A big talking point in the Till versus Brunson event was the leg stomp that Khalil Roundtree did against Modestas Bakauskas, excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, what's your thoughts on that? Because I'm like, it's a legal part of MMA. It's in the game. It's in a fight. There is ways to defend that, and in this case, it was just one that was perfectly landed, and you see the outcome of it, kind of
Mm.
thing.
That's a hard one. I mean, like, my honest opinion, if I'm in there
You would have wanted.
in the cage and I'm in a fight, I would want them to not have it. I want it to be an illegal
Hmm.
strike because me like anybody else doesn't want to get their knees fucked up, and you don't want a career-ending injury. At the same time, it is martial arts, and there are so many things that could be a career-ending injury, and it's hard to say. Well, you can kick someone in the head, but you can't stomp on the
Yeah,
knee,
and it's the same
or
of like you could
you
put them
can
in
do a
arm
knee
bar or a
bar,
knee bar. Yeah, exactly. Like any submission could be an
yeah,
injury.
or like a heel hook. Especially like leg submissions. Especially, you can fuck somebody's knee up, you can fuck their leg up. You can really like damage them
Mm.
properly. So I do get the point of, well, it's a fight. It's an MMA fight. It's supposed to be like kind of no rules barred, but we do have certain
Mm.
rules. Um, but I can understand as well from the other point of view. This if people start doing this a lot, and it has increased the amount of people that have done it and do it effectively, and that it does cause injuries. Maybe we should look over it and make it well, this is too dangerous. This causes too much damage. It costs the UFC money. It costs the fighters money, and it shortens careers. Um, I do definitely understand it from that point of view, and maybe it is worth looking over
Hmm.
it, because I mean there are in all sports they do things to increase safety, but at the same time fighting is very hard because especially MMA, because you don't want to stop it from being a fight.
Mm.
You have this kind of fine line between being a sport and a fight, and I think at the moment it's in a good place where it's not like all out. You can't like eye gouge
Hmm.
people or like kick each other in the nuts and stuff, which can make
Please
it
don't do that.
um, exactly. It can get silly to a certain point if you can do whatever you
Mm.
want. And I'm sure people are very creative and would come up with insane things to injure each other. Um, but I think that's definitely a decision that the big promotions kind of need to take a look at. But then again, you have weird things like um, elbows. Was it like it's 6 to 12
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
elbows or 12? Yeah.
It comes down to small things of like there is ways to like bring down the amount of eye pokes with different gloves and things like
Mm,
that. But apparently, the UFC don't want to change their gloves and this and that, and there's different ways like that. That's a really bad thing in MMA. Someone gets poked in
mm,
the eye. Just look at Bisping. Just look at like, anything can kind of happen to someone's eye. It could stop fights and things like
yeah.
that. But my kind of point with the whole this specific kick is that you can't really see a difference between this really and any other leg kick, because any other leg kick
Mm,
could twist the knee in a certain way. This is just a kind of thing of, okay, I see his leg is planted. If I kick it on the right side or if I kick it on the left side, it will maybe buckle him. That's about it. If I kick it
mm,
straight into the middle, it could be a match ending, sequence.
yeah.
Um, I guess you can kind of set up the same thing about strikes, you know. So it's a hard one, as you say. It'll be a very gray area on it.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, like you say, there are things that are more important. For example, like you say, eye pokes. You can it's not fun and it does do a lot of damage and it can definitely ruin or end your career. Fucking up your knee and having to get operate your
Hmm.
knee. But your eye is your eye. You have two of them. When you fuck them up, and they don't. You can't repair
Yeah,
it.
you don't see any screws in the eyes.
Of course you can. No, of course you can have eye surgeries and stuff, but if somebody has like proper scratched your eye, and it's a deep scratch, that's with you for life.
Mm.
There is only so much that doctors, at least nowadays, can do. Maybe in like 50 years when they can, reproduce body parts and stuff, then it'll be fine and you'll be able to go all out. But I would say that definitely focus on the other things that are like proper big
Yeah.
issues, um, because it's still not. You don't hear about that many, but it's not like it is definitely an issue, but I wouldn't say it's something that like 50% of the roster are agreed upon, like, oh, we got to get rid of
Mm.
them. But I'm sure if you ask that same question about should we change the gloves just a little bit so that we're not fucking each other's eyes up, I think you would have a majority there that'd be like, well, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess put your comments down below, guys. What should we do? What should we
Yeah,
do?
definitely.
Uh, I remembered in the last episode we spoke about Hamzat, and we was unsure if he had a fight booked, and he did. He is going to be fighting on October 30th in Abu Dhabi against Li Ji Liang, the Leech, and I think that's a very exciting fight.
I agree. I would have probably wanted to see him fight somebody that is more mainstream, um, because I think he deserves a hype name because of the fact that the way he stormed his way into the UFC.
That's true.
Um, but it's definitely a quality opponent. So I think it's a good fight. But like I said, I would have wanted him to fight somebody that is a bigger
Mm.
name because his coming opponent is still a dangerous
Yeah.
opponent. I don't think he'll have an issue with it the way he fights. But still, you want to build as much hype around a guy like Hamzat as
Mm.
possible. If you get him fighting, um, maybe a couple of fighters that are past their best years, but they're still names, legends in the sport and that kind of thing. Well, you want to throw these, I think you should respect legends and you shouldn't just like give them fights that are going to be hard fucking fights just to, make another star's
Hmm.
name. But at the same time, that is how the UFC make their money, building
Yeah.
stars. And Hamzat is one of those people that could be a huge star. I mean, if we say that the ultimate ending of Hamzat's career is that he becomes champ quickly and he has a long reign of being a champion. The way he stormed into the UFC, and his background. Like that's the thing that people would make movies
Yeah.
about. So maybe we shouldn't um, take any chances with giving him quality opponents that people don't really know about, because if he takes unnecessary damage, or if he were to lose a fight against someone that people don't really know, then the hype, especially because it's when you have someone that has hype that goes all the way up, the hype can rocket
Yeah,
down really
definitely.
quickly.
Isn't that a bit of a bias alert there coming from you as well? You want to see the
A
Sweden
little
on top?
bit.
Uh, I'm like this. Lee just had an amazing performance knocking out Ponzinibbio, and Ponzinibbio is a massive name. So then, in that kind of rub off, Lee then takes his heat, shall I say? Um, I understand why this match is made as well, because it's in Abu Dhabi. I'm assuming there is probably visa issues with both Hamzat and Lee getting into the US. So I can kind of see of how like, okay, we'll put those two together kind of thing. I'm looking forward to that fight. I feel like it's gonna be interesting. I feel like, well, I guess Lee is a big name on certain parts of the world, definitely, and Hamzat too. And yeah, it should be a good one. I heard that Alexander Gustafsson is injured and postponing his return to light heavyweight.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a shitty one, but I guess better to go in there 100%, especially with how his last couple of fights has gone as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You don't want to be taking chances, especially like towards the end of your career. You don't want to be. The thing is, the UFC they're pretty tough when it comes to losing fights, and they like people that have a proper history and had amazing fights, legendary fights that are going to be some of the best fights in the
Mhm.
world. The UFC don't really care. If you lose a couple of fights and the UFC think, well, we could put someone else in your spot, they'll make you more money. They don't really care. So they'll cut you. So I would say that it's definitely smart to be safe. Make sure you're 100%, because you don't want to be taking a fight and knowing that, okay, well, I'm 70% there. Um, and then you go in, and because you were only 70% of the way, and you know that you couldn't perform on the night, and maybe you lost by a small margin, but if you'd been 100%, you would have destroyed the
Mhm.
guy. You don't want to be doing that kind
A
of
loss
thing.
is a loss.
Yeah, it's risky. It's definitely risky, especially in the UFC.
You were just speaking about how you love to see, the legends of the sport going against people like Hamzat and stuff like that. We'll go to our final subject here. What did you think about the recent boxing events that has been happening then? That was a
Um,
big sigh.
it depends how far back we're going. If we start with the Paul Woodley,
hmm
um, I was disappointed with
To
Woodley.
be honest, I didn't watch it. I couldn't watch it.
I would honestly, I was prepared to bet the house on Woodley.
Oh,
I was like, we're giving Jake too much respect. He has beaten Askren, but Askren's not a striker, and Askren, like, sorry, but he looked like shit going into that fight. He wasn't taking it seriously.
hey man, you know
Jake is a
Aspirin
bigger
watches
dude.
this show all the time. Like, come on, man.
Askren will be in our DMs
Yeah.
later. um, so and the rest of the guys he fought were YouTubers. But dude, he pieced him up, man. And I mean, like, not that it was an impressive performance. It was more the Tyron, who honestly, like, as my friends, I've been a big fan of Tyron for a long time, and Tyron can
hmm
crack, man. Um, but what was he doing? He didn't do anything. He was super passive. He had a really, really good chance. I think it was like the fourth round or something. He had Jake Paul. Jake Paul was rocked, and he was just like stood in front of him, giving him time to recover, being gun shy, and that has been the problem with him since he lost the belt. That's been his issue. He's just been gun shy. He's not been prepared to throw hands, and I don't know whether it was just like he was thinking, "Oh, I'll never get over the shame if I were to get knocked out in like a flurry of punches,
hmm
if I just went off, started firing shots, and I get clipped." I think that was what he needed to do. He had a chance. He could have knocked Jake's lights out, and that would have been the end of YouTube boxing forever.
Yeah.
And Tyron would be, the guy that brought respect back to MMA. And instead, he rocked him, and he didn't do anything with it. And then after the fight, he was agreeing to do tattoos for a rematch
It's
and
mad.
stuff. And then you had the Paul brothers being like, "Well, dude, you got your shot," and it's kind of embarrassing, man, and it's such a shame because Tyron is, he's a legit legend,
I feel like
and it's
this is like feeding to the conspiracy theorists about this whole boxing corruption kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
Because on paper it just doesn't work.
no, I mean it was ridiculous to think that, like, I get boxing and MMA aren't the same sport, but if you can crack, you can
Hmm.
crack. And we're still talking about a guy that has 3 years of boxing experience compared to a guy that's been doing MMA for like 15, 20 plus
Beating a
years.
guy like Robbie Lawler the way that he did, you know, it
Exactly.
just that says it all right there. But then we'll move a bit forward,
Yeah.
and first of all we'll go with the GOAT, which is Anderson Silva.
Dude, Anderson Silva, like, what's going on, man? Like, maybe he shouldn't be doing MMA. Maybe he should be making a bag in boxing. Like, if he can, with the little like professional boxing experience that he's
Mm.
had and the results that he's been getting. But that's what I mean. If you're a true born bred striker like Anderson, I guess it doesn't matter what discipline you're doing in. If you have understanding of timing, range, and accuracy, that'll get you going a long
I
way.
feel like Anderson Silva should be like in these Carlsberg adverts, the ones that are like, if this was this, it would be the best one in the world, kind of thing. Like because everything that
100%.
Anderson Silva touches is just the best. It's just I just don't understand it. He is the fucking goat when it comes to combat sports. He just is.
It's insane.
He is.
Like, how do you do that, especially at his age? It's not like he was Connor when Connor was 30 and went over to
Hmm.
boxing and then went and smashed up a really good boxer. This dude is like, his career, he's definitely past his prime MMA wise. He's an old dude for being a fighter,
Hmm.
and he's still, piecing people up, putting in work. It's
Now
insane.
speaking of old dudes,
Um,
Vitor Belfort versus Evander Holyfield.
that was so sad, man. It's like,
What the hell are they doing?
uh, I don't know if Evander just like doesn't have any money left, or it was just like the fact that anyone actually sanctioned that fight is beyond
Hmm.
me. Like, I mean, Evander Holyfield he's a proper old dude, but he's 60 plus.
I'm not quite. I'm definitely over 50. Definitely maybe 58, something like that. I think he watched Tyson versus who did he face? Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah, in their
I
gentleman's
think I think he
agreement.
watched that and was like, I can do it too, kind of thing. But it's like, yo, you're facing like fucking who? Like you're not
Yeah,
facing.
he's 50. I know, right? He's 58 years old. He's as old as my dad. Um,
Did your dad want to get into boxing?
I would never put my dad in a fight of any kind. I wouldn't put my dad in a fight with a beginner down at the martial arts club. Like, it
You
wouldn't
don't think he
happen.
could take Jake Paul?
To Oh, it's insane. And like, I get that Evander Holyfield is a legend, but Tyson A, he's younger. Um, that wasn't a real fight with Tyson. Tyson and Holyfield. It was definitely a gentleman's agreement. Did they even touch each other's heads? I don't know.
And
Um,
look how much preparation
and then
time
it's
that
like,
Tyson had for that fight.
pardon?
Look how much time like Tyson had to train for that fight. Evander Holyfield came off the sofa
No,
and was like, "I'll take it."
I know. And the thing is, like, Tyson speaks well, even if he's got his, the way he talks, but he's always talked
Hmm.
like that. It's not like a brain damage thing, the reason he talks like he talks. Tyson's still there. And I think he's still very present. I wouldn't say he has no noticeable brain damage or anything like that.
Yeah.
Evander Holyfield, on the other hand, I don't know if you've listened to his episode on Joe Rogan.
No, I haven't. Is he a bit slow?
Literally, I think this was like a year and a half ago, and I was like, oh, Evander Holyfield, got to listen. It's so cool having like proper legends on his podcast, and start listening to him. Like shit, like he can barely string two sentences together.
Wow.
And I think literally like halfway through, I just turned it off because it was like when you hear someone that they have like really bad speech issues and their sentences don't make sense, and it's just like a lot of hard work to listen to. That was what it was. And this is like a year and a half ago, and that kind of thing doesn't get better. And to have someone that is clearly has, symptoms of brain damage, and doesn't make sense when they try to explain things to you, and to throw them in there with a guy that's like nearly 20 years younger, even if he's not a young dude, but I'm being nearly 60 and being thrown into a professional boxing fight, Father Time catches you up, and if you're already vulnerable and it's clear, it's fucking tragic.
Definitely.
Man. Like that, like what would have happened if he got really fucked up? Like if the referee hadn't jumped in, because some people were saying early stoppage,
Nah.
but if you know what Evander's been through, that was like it was a late stoppage. Honestly, they should have cancelled the fight before it even started. But like what would have happened if Evander Holyfield had gotten clocked really badly and had died? It's like those are very real consequences with a guy that's that old. No matter how good he's been in his prime, that was a long time ago that he was in his prime, and he's not been doing anything since.
So, do you think Silva should face Paul?
100%.
Let's go.
I think Silva gets his bag and he shuts Jake Paul up for a bit.
Silva ain't taking a dive.
No way, no how he's not going to take a dive. And I mean, can you imagine Silva gets to fight Jake Paul? There'll 100% be a rematch if Jake Paul loses. It wouldn't surprise me if they're like, oh well, Logan's bigger, he's not skilled, but we'll throw Logan in there as well. Silva could make a really big bag, fighting Jake and potentially his brother as well. And I think it'll probably end the whole YouTube boxing thing. Not that I don't think it's entertaining. I mean, it is entertaining.
Yeah, we're talking about it.
Makes numbers. If I got the choice, I'd be Jake Paul. He was on his Instagram ordering 2 Ferraris. I could do that.
Flex.
I could be hated for more money than I can spend. And
so this is the Anderson Silva retirement fund plan, and that is to beat Jake Paul twice. First this one, and then in the rematch, then just retire and sit on the beach.
Yeah, can you imagine that? You have such a storied career. You're an MMA legend, and instead of being one of these guys that gets in the ring again, gets in the cage again because they've run out of money, they're falling off. Instead, he ends his career, still being a legend, still highly respected. Starts doing boxing because he can. Ends up, he fights some really good fighters, and then ends up with a money fight against a YouTuber that everybody had, made a bunch of hype about. And then he made as much money as he ever made in the whole of his UFC career. And rides off into the sunset.
Do it in Brazil, man. Do it in Brazil. Think about that.
Dude, that would be insane.
That would be insane.
Can you imagine that?
That would be insane.
I think that should definitely be a clause in the rematch. Jake Paul gets a rematch, but it's got to be done in Brazil.
That would be mad. Well, speaking of insane, we again reached over the hour mark. Anyone that is with us still to the end, comment down below that you're a true fan. You are a true fan. Again, Dave, thank you very much. You can catch him on the 4 Ounce Gloves podcast. You're still going strong, bringing out episodes.
Yeah. We're supposed to do an episode today, but you're almost busy. So.
Okay.
We'll have one soon.
It'll be coming up soon. And you'll be catching you at Zone And no, sorry, Wolf, right? You'll be at Wolf.
Wolf fight
All
promotion
right.
will be
And I'm
there.
gonna try and be there. We'll see. We'll see.
That'll be
Yeah,
sick.
defo. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.